What if one conversation could challenge the way we think about generosity, resilience, and even the future of mental health care itself? Welcome to Money to Give with me, Rick Peck, the philanthropy guy. With over 20 years in the nonprofit sector, I have seen hundreds of millions of dollars transferred from donors to nonprofits. I've learned a lot along the way that I want to help convey to you, my loyal listeners. In this podcast series, we talk about 1, how nonprofits can most effectively showcase their mission and vision and raise as much money as possible. 2, how donors and potential donors can make the greatest impact possible in the world. And 3, how professional advisors, including philanthropy advisors, can offer the most up-to-date information and services to their clients. So join us here each episode for more of that giving feeling. Today, I'm honored to welcome author, humanitarian, philanthropist, and war correspondent Mitzi Perdue. In this deeply moving conversation, Mitzi reflects on the values that shaped her life, the influence of her family's philanthropic legacy, and the powerful lessons she learned about service, generosity, and purpose. But this episode also takes us into the heart of Ukraine, where Mitzi shares firsthand stories from civilians enduring unimaginable hardship during wartime. She discusses her groundbreaking efforts to help develop AI-powered mental health support systems for Ukrainians who otherwise have little or no access to counseling services. This conversation is thoughtful, emotional, hopeful, and ultimately a reminder that compassion and innovation can work hand in hand to relieve human suffering. Let's begin. Mitzi, I'm so happy we're talking today. The last time you and I talked, it was at the DAF Giving Summit in October of 2024. And I was really happy to get you before you were about to get into your Uber and take a plane out of the conference. So I was happy to reconnect with you today and have another conversation with you, just like we did before. So thank you for taking the time.
I've been looking forward to it so much.
Oh, that's so great.
The previous time.
Oh, thank you for saying that. It means a lot coming from you. So as we talked about, like, I just want to have a nice open conversation with you about all kinds of things. But I thought we would start with just tell me about Mitzi Perdue, the person. Tell me, like, who were you? I know that sounds like a weird question. Like, who were you? Who are you? And who do you still want to be?
Actually, that's something I'm asking myself a whole lot right now, because believe it or not, I'm 80. Well, you believe the 84, but the part that you might wonder about is I've created a large language module, and within it, an AI agent that's like a duplicate of me.
Wow.
But to do that, it's a 60-hour process, and they ask you all sorts of questions about who you are and why did you get here. And I'm thinking, this is an out-of-body experience almost, because I spent this morning working on my large language agent, and now I'm answering the same thing, which I will now do. Although I think I'll answer it differently for you and for a live audience than I would for a machine. I think a large part of me, what makes me me, I'm going to lay at the feet of my parents. My father was the co-founder of the Sheraton Hotel chain, and I remember an incident from, I'm not sure of my age, I might have been 8 or 10 or something, and it was in the summer. We had a summer house in Dublin, New Hampshire, and it was a Saturday, and all the fathers of my little friends were out playing golf, but I went into my father's study, and there he was working away, going through books and pages and just stuff, and I asked him, Daddy, what are you doing? How come you're not out playing golf like all my friends' daddies? And his answer, which I remember and influenced the rest of my life, he said, I'm analyzing requests for charity. And he said, and this is the part that is with me the rest of my life, he told me that the greatest pleasure that all my money has ever given me is in giving it away. And that sure influenced me. And then I think of my mother, who she had so many phrases that were directed to giving back. I mean, one of the directions she gave all her 5 kids was, our job was to put back in the bucket. And what she meant by that is, we've been given a lot, give back a lot in return. Or should tell me, when you have an inclination to do something nice, something good for somebody, something generous, act on it quickly, before it disappears. And I loved that both parents had a very philanthropic outlook towards life, and the result of it is I thought they were pretty happy people. I mean, I cherish my upbringing.
Wow. That's very special because it sounds like they got great joy out of that. And their joy was so palpable that you felt the joy that they were receiving. And I think that's why it stayed with you all these years.
And then to quote my late husband, who sort of built on that, he had something called an ethical will, which is he knew he was giving the people who came after him, children, grandchildren, he was giving them money. But he also, his biggest goal for them was for them to be happy. And so in addition to material stuff that they got, he gave them, it's the ethical will had 10 things that he recommended that his kids and those who came after him follow if they wanted a happy life. And they were all based on values. And the one that's really relevant here is, if you want to be happy, think what you can do for somebody else. You want to be outright miserable, think what's owed to you.
Interesting.
Is that not just a great
Wonderful
thing?
Oh, yeah. Well, I think it absolutely is. It's just saying, on that second part, where can it possibly stop for some people to say, like, well, a lot's owed to me. I should be receiving a lot of things. It's sort of like the epitome of entitlement. I should have all these different things. But going to the former is more like, that also feels like, how much more can I give back to the world? As your mother thought, we've had a lot of things given to us. What can we do to help others? And that it's almost like the circle of life, the cycle of giving back. We were all brought up by a community who were probably giving lots to us as individuals. We wouldn't be who we are without that ecosystem of kind of that village, it takes a village type of thing. And so why would you not want to continue that cycle and continue to give back when you have done well because people cared about you and took care of you growing up? Same idea.
Yeah, so that's, I would say that's almost the backbone of, at least as I remember it, and another thing that both the Perdues and the Hendersons, I thought were admirable about, was you didn't win points for wearing expensive clothes or expensive jewelry. You won points not for what you bought, but how much you served. And
excellent value system.
Yeah, that get your identity through giving back, not through buying expensive stuff.
Right.
And by the way, trust me, I enjoy expensive stuff as much as the next person. But given a choice, I'll give you a choice that I frequently make, and I may be adjusting it, but I have, like in the last maybe 15, 20 years, I've been to China 12 times. I always went economy class. And the reason why was going first class. I don't know what it is today, but at least the last time I was paying attention, first class was $10,000, $12,000. You could go economy for $1,000. And I always thought, for 12 hours of being somewhat uncomfortable, I would have $9,000 extra to give away, and that's what I did year after year.
That's a great way to think about it.
Yeah, and I'm not visiting China anymore. I visit Ukraine. I've been to Ukraine 5 times and hoping to go a couple of times this year. I'm actually, you asked me to describe who I am. My biggest identity right now is, and I'm so proud of it, war correspondent. I'm closing in on 300 published articles on Ukraine. They began right after the full-scale invasion in 2022. And I love being a war correspondent, not because I like war, but because I feel there's stories to be told, and in some cases, if I don't tell them, they won't get known. And that feels like a contribution.
Absolutely.
I mean, what I like about talking to you, Mitzi, is because there's a richness about everything that you do. I mean, you care about writing, you care about showing up, you talk just so eloquently about your upbringing and giving back. I mean, there's so many parts of what I admire about you, and you show up too. Back to the DAF Giving Summit, you showed up. You don't have to show up. It's not everyone would do that, but you did, and you got out on stage and you were talking. And so it's inspirational because you get to demonstrate for people that you are living your value system. You care about helping other people, and like you said, telling those stories. It's so important. It's really the fabric that holds us all together is excellent storytelling, and it creates compassion and understanding in ways that not everybody has the talent to do that or the motivation to do that. So,
well, that goes right back to my parents from the youngest age. Happiness comes from giving, not, well, Mother had another saying just on exactly this topic. She used to say, the givers of the world are happy, the takers, and by that means taking from somebody, the takers are miserable. And so, sure, by that standard, I'd sure rather be a giver than a taker. So, I mean, it was ingrained in me very young. And my late sister, I lost her about half a year ago. She was 4 years older than me. She was just the essence of what my parents brought us up to be. And I want to share with you and our audience one of the kind of fruits of that kind of life. When she was buried, it was August 10th of last year, there were three governors there were two governors, including a sitting governor, who showed up at her funeral, and then two who sent greetings and tape videos. And they declared New Hampshire on August 10th of last year Augusta Patron Day. And getting that kind of community appreciation, I mean, what a life well lived that people truly mourn your passing and recognize it.
And celebrate it. The fact that when I think someone's named like that, it's just saying, here's somebody, if you don't know her, you should get to know her. We're literally creating a day for her.
Well, I almost felt that her life was spent giving, but even in death she was giving because she was inspirational for everybody who heard about her life. And
right.
There we are.
Yeah, that's the best you can hope for. I mean, people, is it the Maya Angelou saying about people don't remember what you did, but they remember how you made them feel. And I think that's what it is. It's how did you make them feel?
Yeah. And, again, I hope I'm not offending people in our audience, but I think, I'm able, if I chose, to spend $1,000 on a dress. I don't, because to what end? I can wear a dress that's $100 or maybe $70. And, what good do you get out of spending on a label? But on the other hand, if I can give that money, I'll tell you where a small amount of my money goes. I'm part right now of a series. I think it's like 24 YouTube series, but it's also, it's taped in Ukraine. And these are people who, there's a woman, she's a former television star in Ukraine, who has what she calls heroines in, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I don't mean the drug. I mean people.
No, as in the female hero, right?
Yes. Okay, these are people who've endured, like, are war crime survivors and what they do to keep through. And the premise of it is, and I invite anybody to look for this on YouTube, the premise of it is that there are people who have gone through terrible things, like a recent one. It's a woman, she lost her husband and her daughter in a bombing raid, and she woke up in the hospital with, her body was held together almost by splints and rivets. I mean, she was badly injured. But then today, what does that woman do? Well, she's a woman of faith, and she was telling on this program, she was telling that she knew that the Russian enemy wanted to destroy our identity, our faith, just erase us. And she refuses to do that. And so in her church, she leads programs for recovery for teens who have also had losses. And what a beautiful thing. Now, here's the small part that my money's going to. It helps fund the videography of this and the editing of it. But it also, every person who appears on it, I'm giving $100, and that sounds trivial by American standards. But in Ukraine, there are people who make and live on $100 a month. So, small $100 bills here and there. They're not going to change anybody's life, but it makes it a little easier if like you can afford to heat your house or whatever. And speaking of Ukraine, I can't keep to myself what I heard this morning. I talk with Ukraine probably 3 or 4 times a week, and I was talking with the guy right now. Whew. He's in a museum. He's a historian for the National War Museum, and his apartment is 4 degrees, and where he's giving the interview, because I'm writing the story on him, we're talking Fahrenheit. I think he said, 4 degrees in his apartment, everything's frozen solid, including the pipes are breaking, and that's a headache. But in the museum, it's 43 degrees, and there's no light. He's speaking to me from his laptop, and he's running it on battery, and the only light in the whole museum is there's a window nearby that lights his face, but there's no light in the museum. And the hardships that they have, I feel so almost compelled to do everything I can for Ukraine, knowing having a glimpse of between war crimes and suffering, what they're going through.
Yes. Yeah, it's unimaginable.
That our viewership has a strong stomach, because I want to share something.
Yeah, please do.
Okay, the reason I was interviewing him was Putin says that he protects religious freedom, but this historian, his particular, it's one of his specialties, is documenting the war crimes against churches. There are 700 churches in Ukraine that have been either severely damaged or razed to the ground. And what kind of country does that? And then Putin goes and tries to convince the West that it was Ukraine that destroyed its own churches. And then he was saying, that when they take over a region, and this began in 2014, when they take over a region, one of the first things that they do, well, as far as I can tell, the first thing they do is they kill the police, so that anybody with arms can't resist them. But then they go after the religious leaders, the priests, the ministers, and they don't just kill them, they torture them first, and they have torture chambers. And a torture chamber, like the one the story I'm about to tell, it's in the eastern region. I think it's in the Donbass, which is occupied by Russia right now. The Museum of Modern Art, or Contemporary Art, of the city in Donbass, the basement of it is used as a torture chamber. And torture, one of their favorite things is to take an iron, the kind that you'd iron your shirt with, and it's at full heat, and they torture a guy with that till he dies. And you might say, why would they do this? And the goal is just to erase any trace of resistance, because you resist, that's going to happen to you. I mean, these guys, I as a writer, I'm going to write this story. I've got all the notes for it because the interview's done, but how do I tell this story in print in a way that won't just turn people off and this is too horrible to think about?
I think you're just telling the reality of what's happening. It's not, It's not that it's not a fictional story where they say, well, this is a little too over the top. You're saying this is actually happening. It's enlightening and disturbing at the same time.
Yeah, I want people to know it, because when they say, well, why doesn't Ukraine just give in? Well, because that's what they do when they take over an area. They go after the police, they go after the religious leaders, they go after the government, they go after anybody who can consolidate resistance against them, and they torture and kill them.
Wow. And I don't think most people know that that's happening. I think people have a vague idea of what's happening over there, or they're confused. They're saying, like, why is this lingering on so long, and to what end, and what's going to happen? I think you and I talked about this, a little over a year ago, the idea that people don't always know what they can be doing to be helpful. Americans will sort of watch from afar and say, it's as horrible, but what can I do? How can I make a difference? It feels like it's much bigger than me. You have these two warring countries, obviously one that's under attack. It's more of an invasion than a war. And when will it end? And what can the average person do? I think that's where people feel a little bit disempowered, a little bit sad and empathic, but not necessarily knowing what they can do with that. And I think what you're talking about.
To come to my website, MitziPerdue.com, and I would love them to come to my website, because that will lead them to a charity that I'm a co-founder of, which is making a fantastic difference. And, well, can I tell you about it?
Yeah, please do.
I thought you wouldn't mind.
No, I definitely want to hear about it.
Okay, as a war correspondent, and I have been there 5 times, and I've spent months there put together, and I believe I've interviewed way more than 100 war crimes victims. And if you've been through some of the things that I've heard, you have post-traumatic stress disorder. But yeah, by some estimates, 95% of the population of Ukraine could use counseling, because they have things like, I'm not talking like schizophrenia or something. I'm talking about anxiety, sleeplessness, panic attacks, depression. A huge number of the population of Ukraine right now is battling this and can use counseling. And by the way, it's sort of a fuzzy line. At what point do you say somebody's seriously disturbed? And, by some estimates, it's like 20 or 30%. But the overwhelming majority is dealing with things like depression or anxiety or sleeplessness. And because I have something of a background in computer science, it occurred to me like a year and a half ago, what if we could use artificial intelligence that was very specifically tuned by Ukrainians using material that Ukrainian mental health professionals agree is good and helpful and culturally right for Ukraine? What if we could train a ChatGPT kind of agent to give advice that's specifically right for Ukrainians, and with the absolute certainty that it's not going to be as good as being with a mental health professional? But that's not available when you've got like 35 million people who would benefit from counseling. And okay, a statistic. In the United States, we have one mental health professional, roughly speaking, per 500. So you have a mental health issue, you can probably find somebody who's going to help you. I mean, it may take weeks, but they're there, they exist. In Ukraine, it's not 1 per 500, it's 1 per 100,000. So effectively, what that means is you're depressed, you've got anxiety, you're just really having a hard time, and you would benefit from counseling, but it's not there. What could be a stopgap? What could, on the theory that something's better than nothing, what if we could have free mental health counseling available? I'm going to pretend this is my smartphone. It's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And you can get it. There are two reasons if you're in Ukraine that this is particularly doable. Courtesy of Elon Musk, everybody gets free Starlink. You don't have to download anything. So you're depressed and it's 3 a.m. and you're just eaten alive with anxiety and depression and whatever else. You can go to your smartphone and get some really, really helpful advice and interaction. It's tuned to be friendly, supportive. If tough love is necessary, I mean, you're going off on some area that will be harmful to yourself or others, it will pull you back in. But it's meant to be almost like a companion. And we're also working very hard to make sure you don't get dependent on it. But it's there when you need it. And I mentioned this to General David Petraeus. He's the 4-star. I mentioned this to him. He liked the idea. He's raised almost $1 million to help put it into effect. It started out as a program of the American University Kyiv. It's outgrown that. We now have memorandums of understanding where we're working with the military, with the police, with just with all sorts of, we're working like hand in glove with the Ukrainian government because we're providing something that's needed and the price is right, as in we're not charging.
Wow. And that is powerful because, like you said, there's no 1 to 100,000. These people are not going to get what they need. And it sounds like the positive part of AI too is it's a learning system. So it's almost like the more people they get to interview or talk with through the computer, through the AI, it's going to understand that population even better and hopefully provide even better and better advice. You brought up an interesting point that people could become dependent on it, but I suppose that's, that could happen. But the opposite is also a problem, which is they have nothing. So to be able to have that type of support when people need it, it's invaluable because who knows how many lives can be supported and saved at a time where most Americans wouldn't be able to even imagine living a life like they're living, especially with such a poor mental health support system around them. So I think that you're just helping on so many different levels. You're reporting out on what's happening as far as the war itself. And you're also talking about how are we supporting the people who are victims of this and being, using a lot of creativity around technology and being able to serve in ways that otherwise wouldn't be available to them.
Allow me to give you an example, well, a couple of examples. In fact, my problem is I can't stop talking.
No, that's why we're here.
Okay, well, I will make an attempt to be somewhat self-disciplined. A statistic, and this was true in late September of last year. It may have changed, but while I was there, the suicide hotline would take up to 12 hours to have somebody answer. And why is that? Because there just aren't enough people to man it in comparison to the need. I mean, I'm giving you that as an example of why artificial intelligence, it's not perfect. I get that it's not perfect, but it's so much better than nothing.
Well, yeah. I mean, you're saying if we could staff have 1 to 500, as the ratio, we would do it, but we can't do it. It's not possible. And waiting 12 hours to talk to someone is not acceptable.
You may have done yourself in that time. I mean, I've talked with people in Ukraine. I make it my business to get to know mental health professionals, and I was saying, in medicine, there's the principle do no harm, and with the big thing that we're wrestling with right now is we would like to do something about that issue of somebody calls the suicide prevention hotline and nobody answers. We have some ways of dealing with this, actually quite a lot, because this is a very active field of study, suicide prevention. There's a lot that's known, but we do want it tuned and trained to Ukrainian customs and culture. And so the issue that we're wrestling with is, how fast do we roll it out and make it available? And how much do we do everything we can to make it as safe and effective as possible? And I'll tell you the answer I heard universally in Ukraine, but I'm still hesitant, is, well, like all of economics is you weigh one choice versus another. That's what economics is. And so the thing that we're wrestling now with is, do you make it as good as you can? Or do you put it out there as fast as you can? And people in Ukraine were saying, it's not a question, put it out there as fast as you can. The good thing from my point of view is this isn't my decision. It's a decision of experts who know an awful lot more than I do about ethics and practicality, and they're Ukrainians and Americans who are wrestling with this very issue right now. And which way they come out at this exact moment, I don't know. But my inkling is that they're going to roll it out faster rather than slower. But do you see the ethical dilemma?
Yeah, absolutely. But I think the ethicists are probably looking at it in terms of, is there more good than harm being done by rolling it out? And if that's the case, when we roll it out and we continue to iterate off of it versus holding back and not producing it, and then you have, there's no positive change because you haven't even tried essentially to address it. So I can see how it needs to be weighed.
Test it out on small groups and then on larger groups. And
yeah.
So invite me back again and I'll tell you how it turned out.
Please do come back and tell us, because I appreciate your innovation.
I have had the privilege of sitting in on some of the pilot tests, and I'll share with you like just one. I sat in on one case where there was a woman who, I think she's from the town or the city of Kherson, and when it was overrun, she's a mid-level bureaucrat, probably in her 50s, and she was taken prisoner. And her job was, this is a woman who has had a desk job. Her job was to dig trenches, anti-Ukrainian trenches, so that the Ukrainians are trying to come in and liberate Kherson, and she's digging trenches to obstruct them. So this is not what she wants to do, but she knows she'll be shot if she isn't working hard, because they do shoot the people who aren't working hard. But the other thing is, the guards, they're standing over there with their AK-47s ready to shoot people. And if one of them gets in the mood, he'll call her out and rape her. And there's absolutely nothing she can do. And then she has to go back to work. Well, imagine, eventually, because she's from the area, she figured out how to escape, and she did. But at this point, she's probably been in safety a year, but it's awfully hard to hold a job because she has panic attacks. And have you ever had a panic attack?
Yeah, I know people have them all the time. Sometimes they don't know why they're having panic attacks, but it can be pretty debilitating.
Well, in her case, it's certainly understandable that, a flashback lead. Okay, I'm not a psychologist. I don't want to pretend to understand exactly why she's having panic attacks. However, this is the advice that she got. And tell me if this isn't just great. Well, she told me it was great. The advice that she got was that when you're having a panic attack, it's very typical to think you're going to die. And she was able to learn from the information provided that people don't die of panic attacks. It's also typical when you're in the middle of it. You can't imagine that it's ever going to end. And the accredited advice that she got was, a typical panic attacks, you think it's forever. No, it's 5 minutes. A bad one would be 10 minutes, and an end of the world one would be 20. But she was told, when you're in the middle of a panic attack, you're suffering, you think the world is swirling around you. You think you're going to die. You think you're going to die. But tell yourself every minute that goes by is closer to when it's going to end. And it might be 5 minutes. It might be 10. Hugely unlikely, but it could be 20. But you will live and it will end. And, she told me that this is brand new information to her. It also said something really important. If you can, sit down and hold on to your chair. But supposing you're outside, one of the things that will stabilize you and make it less severe is lean against a wall, or if there's a lamppost, put your arms around the lamppost and just hold on to it. You don't care what people think. What you want right now is to get through this. But they said, or the information she was given is, have something to hold on to, because that communicates with your brain that not the whole universe is swirling out of control. Anyway, she got like 5 or 6 pieces of advice, and this was just sort of the beginning of the help that she got. But it was just extremely useful, because the first thing that I learned from her is that she wasn't aware before this advice that it wasn't just some weird, strange thing that was hers alone. No, this is something that many, many people go through, and these are things that help them. And, just that information is, I believe, in her case, life-changing.
For sure. I mean, what I appreciate about this conversation is that you are being very sensitive to the struggles that people are having and trying to help solve for those. And if we aren't trying to be creative and use the resources that we have and use the connections that we have and use those types of abilities, then we are passively allowing people to suffer. And that's what I'm hearing in everything you're saying is, how can we alleviate suffering here for these people who are looking for solutions and obviously under great distress? So if there's ways that we as human beings can help other human beings, why would we not try to do that?
Well, there's another wrinkle to this, which is right now the country of Iraq has asked to use our system, and we're eager. And then Kurdistan wants to use our system, and I had the huge privilege of talking with the previous president of the United Nations General Assembly, Dennis Francis, and he said that if this works in Ukraine, it could be a template to be culturally right for every country in the world, because you'd have local psychotherapists reviewing information that the agent could be trained on so that it's right for their country. And he said the beautiful thing about this is it's one thing that every country in the world can agree on, which is free mental health. And he said it's not a global South issue or a rich North. Yet it's just everybody could get behind it, and it's remarkably scalable. So what we're doing in Ukraine could have implications anywhere where there are underserved people, particularly in conflict areas. And
sadly, that's probably not going to be going out of style anytime soon. There's always going to be areas of conflict. People are always going to need to repurpose something like this to other places, probably for many generations, sadly. So in other words, repurposing it. Yeah.
Yeah, we're developing it with in mind that, as we go through mistakes, we document the mistakes, mid-course corrections, all of it we're preserving so that other countries that want to copy it, we're eager to make it available to them.
Yeah. Wow. Well, Mitzi, just as we wind down together, I just want to say, again, I respect your passion around not only being innovative and trying to help people who are at war right now, but also thinking ahead about how this can be repurposed to help other people in the future. And that's just really talking about legacy. What an amazing legacy that is. So any final thoughts?
Contribute and have part of their own legacy. The biggest thing that holds us back is funding, and I'm giving everything I can. If people will come to MitziPerdue.com and press the link to where you can learn more about it and maybe donate, $5 makes a difference.
Yeah. Well, actually, I would compel you to go the other direction and say, how much money are you looking to raise? And maybe people going to your website say, oh, well, that's what the goal is. Well, let me see if I can help you at a higher dollar level. Or is there something else I can be doing? Because if they're that passionate about it, they might want to say, well, what could $100,000 do? Or in some cases, what would $1 million do? Like, how would we be able to help not only these people, but how would be able to help other people in the future? And that's just the fundraiser in me, is sort of like, ask for what you need and let people make the choice on what they're going to do, right?
You know what? I'm going to rearrange the website to say what you can get for X, but I'll tell you right off. Right now, we can really do well with maybe 10,000 people, but to serve all of Ukraine, we need more servers. One server costs $40,000. I'd really like to have 5. Then I also want to hire more psychologists, more translators, more information technology people. We have 5 people right now. I would like by the end of this year to be up to 12. You've inspired me. I'm going to put on the website what a donation of X means.
I think that's really, I'm glad I inspired you. I think that's important because I'm seeing, as you're talking, this is kind of creeping up into the $1 million category, and using the statistics that are out there, $600 billion was donated in the United States alone in 2024. And so I'm thinking all you're asking for is $1 million to make a difference in ways that could be immeasurable, but incredibly powerful. $1 million out of $600 billion, that's not a big ask. And you're not asking for something that you wouldn't necessarily be able to see the results on. So you'll see these short-term results, and then the long-term results. Again, that's the part that I was mentioning could be immeasurable. So I would say, I'm glad I said that. I'm glad you want to go do that, because I think that people need to know, like, what is the impact of what I'm about to do. And I would like to support something that's important and powerful. And and just by listening to this podcast and going to your website, people are going to learn something completely new, thinking about impact in ways they hadn't thought about before.
Well, write to me also, Mitzi at MitziPerdue.com. And, questions, I'm at the door to answer them.
That's great. And if you don't know how to spell Mitzi, if you're just listening, Mitzi, and Perdue is Perdue. So she just told you how you can get in touch with her. And Mitzi, thank you so much for being here. It's always a pleasure to be in your company. And I always feel your passion and your empathy and your humanity in every possible way. So thank you for what you do. And I hope lots of people go to your website and you achieve your goals as far as the financial piece of this. And then imagine the stories you'll be able to tell about individuals and others who have benefited from this in the future.
Well, invite me back in summer, and I will have been for my 6th trip, and I can report on so much more.
Well, consider yourself invited back. So that's 6 months from now. We can put it on the calendar. We'll come back and record and tell us the rest of the story as far as what you've learned and what's happening. And that's exciting. And people get to follow the trail of progress. What's more fun than that?
I love it. Thank you for having me on.
All right. Thank you, Mitzi. We'll see you next time. See you in 6 months.
Beautiful. Till then.
All right. Bye.
That wraps up today's conversation with Mitzi Perdue, and I hope it leaves you reflecting not only on generosity, but on the profound responsibility we all share to care for one another. Here are 3 key takeaways from today's episode. First, true philanthropy is not measured by what we accumulate, but by how intentionally we use our resources to serve others. Second, storytelling matters. By sharing the realities of war, trauma, and resilience, people like Mitzi help ensure that suffering is not ignored or forgotten. And third, innovation can become an extraordinary force for compassion. Whether through technology, collaboration, or creative problem solving, we each have the ability to contribute to meaningful solutions. As you think about today's conversation, ask yourself this: what gifts, experiences, or resources do I have that could make life better for someone else? Thanks for listening to Money to Give. If this conversation resonated with you, Please leave a review on your preferred streaming platform, share it with a friend or colleague, and most importantly, keep that giving feeling going. We are now broadcasting in 37 countries and growing, with 500 downloads per month and nearly 10,000 downloads to date. A reminder, this podcast is meant to be for educational purposes only. For specific advice related to your own situation, please consult an attorney, financial advisor, CPA, or other type of trusted consultant. If you're looking for fresh insights on how to give smarter, raise more money, and advise your clients in a more informed way, please subscribe to my weekly newsletter, Charitable Giving News for You. Register by going to my website, thephilanthropyguy.com. In the newsletter, you'll also read about many of our podcast guests while also getting helpful tips and advice for nonprofits, donors, and professional advisors. Meaningful giving starts with meaningful connection, so please connect with me, Richard Peck, on LinkedIn as well. Until next time, let's keep making a difference together.